Menna Stone, Chapter 18. After I showered, I went to call Aunt Frida to breakfast. Mom was going to take her to the airport after we'd eaten the waffles she had made. My mom actually cooking. I figured maybe it was some sort of statement. I knocked at the door, softly at first, then more instantly. "Come in." Insistently. "Come in." Aunt Frida sat on the chair by the window. The sunlight streamed in, bathing the room in morning gold. She was dressed in a blue suit, skirt, blouse, jacket, ready for her trip home. I had meant to say breakfast ready, but what came out was, "Do you have to go?" "You know what they say about house guests, and fish going bad after 3 days," she smiled. "And I've been here much longer." I sat down on the bed. "You know, when you came, like at first, I didn't know if you'd, fit in. But how, now I can't imagine this room, us, without you." "Oh, things will return to normal soon enough." "I hope not." "My mother used to sew quilts, Ben. Beautiful quilts, pieced together with odd bits of clothing that we'd all worn one time or another. It was a wonder the threads even held together after our brood was through wearing them. But somehow she'd salvage bits and pieces and bring them together as something new. Still, every patch, every square held a memory, a story. A bruised knee, a church social, a Christmas dress. When I look at your family, Ben, that's what I see. A beautiful quilt still in the making. It's taken me a lifetime to follow the threads of my life. This time with your family has been very special to me. It reminded me that I have a place in the world, a reason for being." She sat straighter and sniffed at the air. "Nah, yo, I smell something delicious." "Mom's making waffles. Your mother is cooking?" She sounded so surprised that I laughed out loud. "See what you've started?" The mood was somewhat somber in the kitchen, but the reviews of the waffles were positive. "Very good, Mum," Beth announced after 2 very thoughtful bites. Mum grinned. "They are, aren't they? I hoped I'd made enough." It was weird, but nice to hear her sounding so much like a mom. I knew the cooking wouldn't last. Beth would face a firing squad before surrendering the kitchen. Still, it was nice to see Mum so here. Suddenly I was starving. I grabbed 3 waffles and the girls hollered. "It's okay," Mum intervened. "He's a growing boy." "That's right," I said with my mouth full. "Just try keeping your mouth closed. Maybe till you've grown," Joni grumbled. "They're very tasty, Catherine," Aunt Frida said. "Thank you, Frida," Mum answered softly. After Joni had finished her breakfast, she took her plate to the sink and left the room without a word. She returned hugging a canvas to her. You couldn't see what was on it because she held it so tightly against her sweater, and her face was pale pink. She handed the picture to Aunt Frida. "I want you to have this." Aunt Frida held the pictures out at arm's length and studied it. Even from where I was sitting, I could tell it was good. But when she held it up, I knew it was more than just good. It was beautiful. The grays and blacks were still there, but Joni had added light. You could see a picture emerging from the shadows, or maybe it was the light emerging. I couldn't tell, but it was clearly Aunt Frida in the forefront. Some of the lines on her face appeared softened by Joni's brush, but when I looked closer, I realized that the lines were still there. It was the radiance in her eyes that outshone everything else. In the background was another distant figure, further away, less defined, our dad. And around him stood clusters of people, lines and curves mostly, but definitely people. Aunt Frida's brothers or sisters, or great aunts and uncles, strangers, but now part of us. Finally, Aunt Frida broke the silence. "It's lovely, Joni." She had tears sparkling in her eyes. She passed her hands over the figures, not touching, only skimming the surface of the painting. "But it is so precious. You should keep it here with you." Joni shook her head. "I want you to have it, really. Besides, the den could use a new mural. A new look. Time for a change." Aunt Frida nodded. "Yes, it is." "I think we should propose a toast," I said, surprising myself. "Good idea," Mom said, starting to stand. Joni frowned her down. "Let him do it." Amazingly, Mad obeyed. I stood, holding my orange juice. I felt awkward and was tempted to sit down again, but I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do it right. I coughed to loosen my vocal cords. "Well, I'd just like to say, first of all," I looked around and almost lost my nerve, but Aunt Frida's bird-like posture, head thrust forward, made me smile. "Well, you're really old." The girls laughed and Mum said, "Ben," with only mild disapproval. Aunt Frida nodded with a glint in her eyes. "And you're very smart and kind of pushy. You tell great stories, and I think," I looked into her eyes, "I think maybe you stitched us together." "To Aunt Frida," we said. After our bags had been checked, we hovered around Aunt Frida just outside the security gates. She looked up at us, tears flooding the rims of her soft brown eyes. "I love you all," she said simply. She hugged the girls one by one, lingering with my mother, who, it seems, held on the longest. Finally she turned to me. "Now, yo, Mem Bangle. You help me," I said, my voice cracking a little. I reached down and hugged her. We helped each other. Then she straightened to her full height, such as it was, and her many years were apparent on the face that she had lived forever. "You take care of each other," she said, and then she was gone. When we got back home, I told Mum I was going for a walk. "Anywhere in particular?" Nat asked, eyes twinkling. "Leave him be," Mum ordered, and I smiled my appreciation. I followed my tracks from the night before. My heart pounded a rhythm that I fell into until I was almost jogging. As I approached her house, I made myself slow down. "Cool it, Conrad," I muttered. But I wasn't feeling cool. I couldn't keep the grin off my face. I saw her before she saw me. She was in the driveway practicing her jump shots. She was so good. She was so pretty. Then the old nervousness appeared, and the voice that told me that she was way, way out of my league. Last night's dance had never happened. It was a dream. I was dreaming to think she'd be interested in me. I could turn around and she'd never know. Ducking behind a tree, I took a deep breath. The blossoms obscured my view, and I knew how stupid it must look, a kid hiding behind a cherry tree. I pushed a branch out of my way to get a better view. Then I thought of Henry. I snapped off a blossom before I could change my mind. I thought of how it would look in her dark hair, and I smiled. I took a step forward towards the sound of the basketball. Na yo. End of chapter 18. End of Menastone.